All right, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of this Magfest interview podcast. My name is Mash. I am joined today by Kent.
Oh, hey, how's it going, Mash? How you doing today?
Good, good. Thank you for being on today. So just to kind of explain some of how this works for everybody, for you as well, and for anyone that's listening, I used to do Magfest interviews from the show, and obviously we can't do that right now. But
Yeah.
even outside of that, I was trying to kind of create a side project to make it a little bit more manageable, just so that Magfest could become a wonderful gamer vacation that it used to be for me back in the day, at least a little bit more. Kent has not been on any of the interviews before. He's not been on this podcast as well. This is a first time appearance. So we're going to do it different from episode 1. This is going to be more of like an interview. So in the sense of like, I'm basically going to be asking him the questions from the Magfest interviews and to see any kind of like cool stories or anecdotes he would have from his time at Magfest. Before we get into that, Kent, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
All right. Well, I've been going to Magfest for 7 years now. It would have been 8, and I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's an event that I've looked forward to every year. It's my favorite time of the year because I get to see all my friends. I get to hear a lot of great music, see a lot of cool stuff, play games, party, network, and I record podcasts there too, much like yourself. And I don't know, it's just an amazing time that just sets the tone for the rest of the year. That's pretty much my launching point of like, here's how I'm going to do the rest of the year. And a lot of people at MagFest probably know me for running Ongaku Overdrive out of Orlando, Florida. I would say Ongaku Overdrive is kind of like a much smaller version of what MagFest does. We feature video game bands, nerdcore acts, chiptune acts. We'll have game setups at our events. We'll have some artists and vendors that are bigger events. And it's kind of like a small piece of that pie out of Orlando, Florida for people that can't go to MagFest or want to do something at a different time of the year where they won't freeze to death. So I've been doing that. I run the Nerd Music Meltdown podcast, and I have over a decade of working on events from a behind-the-scenes standpoint.
Could you explain the name, Ongaku Overdrive?
Sure. Ongaku is the Japanese word for music. Pretty simple to understand. And at the time we formed, we were hoping for more of an anime vibe. Like, I actually had like grand plans of like, oh, we'll bring in famous J-rock bands and J-pop bands at some point in the future to rock alongside Mega Man and Armkin and all that good stuff. Because at the time in Orlando, Florida, there's a show called Nerdapalooza where it's like, we're gonna do all this cool nerdy music stuff and celebrate nerd culture, except those anime people. They should stay over there. And at the time, anime was kind of like in a down period. Nowadays, anime is incredibly hot, more watched than it ever has been in America, with incredible shows like My Hero Academia, Promare in theaters, etc., etc. But like at the time, it was kind of like the redheaded stepchild of fandom. But we still loved anime. I'm an old school anime fan going back to like the mid '90s, right? I was running an anime club. I was working for an anime convention in Orlando called Anime Fest for Orlando. I was like, well, I think anime fans would love acts like Mega Man or Professor Shy Guy. So why don't I do my own show that's going to be catered towards anime fans? Maybe get some J-pop type stuff in there and see how that goes. And it went good early on, but when Nerdapalooza went out and we started to notice that anime in Orlando was kind of shifting to be incredibly casual, we were like, okay, well, maybe we'll change things up to be more of a video game focused show because that seems to be working. That's bringing out the audience that wants to come out to shows and have a good time. So that's where Ongaku Overdrive came to be. We've been around coming up on 8 years now, which is exciting. And the Overdrive part was a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure just had started airing in America on Crunchyroll at the time. And they had special attacks like Sunlight Yellow Overdrive. So the idea is like, well, why don't we have something that's like more anime flavored in our title? And JoJo's was hot, so it's like we brainstormed a bunch of stuff. I think Third Impact, which was an Evangelion reference, was like an alternate name of what we were trying to come up with it for like a brand name. But Ongaku Overdrive has stuck since.
That's cool. That's, I like the Overdrive. When I think of Overdrive, I think of the Sega Mega Drive for some reason. I don't know. It just comes into my head. So it's almost perfect. It has that like that video game tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. And congratulations on 8 years. I know running events is challenging and very taxing. So
Oh, yeah.
big ups to you guys.
Yeah, it is pretty hard because I mean, obviously we got to invest money, and you hope you get a return. You hope people like what you're doing, so they come out and buy a ticket. You hope that the acts come out and have a good time as well, and are doing good on their end, and don't cost too much to bring out, whether it be with flights, hotels, and guarantees. And you hope that the time of the year is right. You hope that the venue is not too expensive. There's like a bunch of different things that can go on that affects an event, even down to the weather. So it's always stressful, but it's very rewarding at the end when everyone has a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna get into the Magfest interview portion of this, and once again, this is gonna be like a straight. This is exactly the way I would do it in person at Magfest, but from the convenience of being able to just do this at home. So, how far do you usually have? Do you usually have to travel to get to Magfest?
The first 2 years I went, we actually drove by car, and it was about a 15-hour drive one way from Orlando to the, I guess, National Harbor, Maryland area. And that's a pretty grueling drive, especially if you're in a vehicle that doesn't have any legroom. So after a couple years, we decided that, and I mean, me and my girlfriend decided, you know what, we're just going to fly out to MagFest. It'll cost more, but it'll be quicker and it'll be more worth it. And it's like maybe about an hour and a half flight from Orlando to the DC area, Ronald Reagan Airport. And then we just take like an Uber for half an hour to the hotel. And that is a massive savings of time. I say like almost 30 hours of time savings, right? That alone makes it worth it for me. So it's a quick flight over to the DC area, and usually we try to get in early enough to check out the actual Washington DC area, see the monuments, check out a museum or two, get some food. It's a good time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always make sure to ask that question because it's always like it's always interesting to see how far people go to travel to go to Magfest. Also, for anyone that doesn't know, I section these things into little parts. But in terms of Magfest history, so how many years have you been going to Magfest?
This would have been my 8th year coming up. So I think 2014 was the first one I went to. So my first Ongaku Overdrive show was in 2013 after that MagFest had happened. I've been hearing about it from people in Orlando that, hey, this is a show that you need to go to. And so people convinced me to go to it. That used to go at the time. So we went, and I was incredibly blown away. That's how I discovered acts like Danimalkin and Armkin, because there are acts that like went to Orlando, but not like everyone went to Orlando. Like Megaran was always there, of course. The Predator were huge in Orlando. But then Magfest had all these other acts that I'd never seen before come down to Florida. So I was like, wow, there's all these chiptune acts I never heard of. There's all these amazing video game bands. You have the 24-hour arcade. The first year I went, they had the Fist of North Star Fighter Mania, or whatever the punching machine is. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like whack-a-mole, but based on the Fist of North Star anime series, right? So I played that a lot because I was already a huge fan of that particular show. It's my favorite anime, in fact. So I'm like, oh my god, I've heard about the game, I've seen pictures of the game, but I never got to play it before. So every chance I had a break, I'll just go downstairs, get in line, and play that game. And the biggest mistake from that first year was not washing my hands regularly. This event taught me to wash my hands regularly because you're putting on mitts when you're using these punching pads or hitting these punching pads. So obviously, I got the flu for like a whole week after my first Magfest because I didn't wash my hands like I should have
What?
every time I played that game. So because it was like they're gross mitts too. So
Yeah, 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 yeah. We're especially aware of all of that stuff now. But like, yeah, in general,
Mhm.
I mean, anytime you go to any kind of arcade, people have been touching the buttons and the sticks and the cabs and all that
Yep.
all over the place. You can even just look at we have a lot of bar. I don't know if you have this in your area, but we have a lot of barcades over here in New York, and you can kind of just see what the way they place the cabinets. They will have a cab next to another one, and there's like a flat plank of wood between them. That's so that people could put their beer down, and you could really see how many people have been there because there are all these marks from like some kind of beer or a beer bottle, like all the condensation dripping off of it, or if somebody spills some. So you see all of these outlines of like hundreds of beers that have been drank at this location, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah, we have a couple of barcades down here. Arcade Monsters and Player One are the most prominent ones. We had a couple smaller ones, like there's a pinball lounge here in a city right outside of Orlando. And downtown used to have, I think it's still there, but they got their license suspended because, well, they were violating mandates that were related to the coronavirus here in Orlando. So, along with some other bars. So, the city of Orlando was like, all right, we're taking your license. So I think that place was called Joysticks.
Yeah, we have a barcade. We have like another barcade on the Lower East Side that's called something different.
Hmm.
There's quite a few of them. It's a really cool concept, and it every time I'm in one of them, I honestly just think of Magfest because that's kind of how Magfest is, you know?
Yeah, it's a magical time for sure, and it's cool for me because Magfest was actually the first time I've ever seen snow. Like I was born in Florida, lived in Florida all my life, and I've been to other parts of the country, but I've never been up north during the winter. So I went up to Magfest. I think the first year or second year I went, it was snowing that year. It's like, oh shit, there's snow. I've never seen that before in my life. So we made snowballs. We actually threw snowballs at each other and stuff like that, and I was just basically crushed up ice. I was on it. It was cool. It was kind of neat, but I was like, oh, this is not as cool as how they depict it in the cartoons and movies.
Charlie Brown specials. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like that's amazing because Magfest it snows all the time. The East Coast is the Northeast Coast, and even like DC is kind of like mid east, but whatever. Northeast is it gets so snowy over here, especially around that time. That Magfest is always. Going to Magfest, you're always threading the needle of like either it just stormed like crazy or it's about to storm like crazy. And every once in a while, like I remember one year I got to Magfest and like a huge blizzard just started. I didn't care because I was gonna be there for 4 days. Like after 4 days, a blizzard just generally disappears. But yeah, I mean blizzards and Magfest, it goes hand in hand. I'm glad you got to see that. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was another crazy aspect of MacFest as well. If you're trying to get home by plane, I think the one year they had a blizzard that was so bad, so people had to stay in that area for like an extra day or two
Yeah.
while we were able to drive home. I think it was like the last year we drove back. You know,
One year at Magfest where somebody that I knew had plans to just take either a plane or something like that. They just ended up having to find somebody to hitch a ride with because if you take a car, somebody's taking a car, they could just drive through a blizzard. That's people do that all the time. But if
yeah,
you're gonna take a plane, sometimes even buses and trains will get grounded. Usually not trains. That's how I go. But planes definitely you're gonna have a problem. So you gotta watch out for that.
definitely.
But good thing MacFest is really friendly. You can usually find someone to help you out. Okay, so we talked a lot about the concerts, the arcades. So MacFest has a lot of these aspects to it. But what would you say over the years is your favorite part of MacFest? Like concerts, hotel parties, arcade, merch area, jam space, indie games, what have you?
Wow, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask some tough questions.
Concerts are the thing I look forward to the most because the production value of MagFest is top notch. You feel like you're going to something incredibly major when you're there. They got the video walls, got the amazing lighting rig, they got the big sound. If you're there for a big concert, like let's say the Proto Men played this year, the whole ballroom is packed and thing. If I get up front during those concerts, I'll just look around behind me and just see an endless sea of people. It's just nuts from the front all the way to the back wall when you have those big shows, like whether it be Power Glove or Mega Ran or Bit Brigade, who actually wasn't at MagFest this year, but like those kind of shows are always wild to see because I love video game music. I love nerdcore and I love chiptune. I love that kind of atmosphere and vibe that music brings, those subgenres bring. And being at MagFest with thousands of like-minded people, that's cool. Because here in Orlando, if we do really good, we give out maybe 200 to 300 people at a show, and that's awesome. Or like at MagFest, it's thousands, and they're all super passionate. And they know who all the acts are. They know all the songs. They know what these acts have gone through to get to MagFest, to be big enough to be on that main stage. And they're all incredibly supportive of these acts. And it's also a good chance to discover new acts as well. If and that aspect is cool too. So that's the part I love most. But you just touched on a bunch of different things that are cool. So like another aspect of MagFest I love is the indie game showcase because you don't know what's going to come out of that. Like many years ago, I remember just walking around that area and I was hearing Danimal Cannon's music, and I'm like, "What's Danimal Cannon doing playing in the indie game showcase?" So I'm trying to find Danimal, and the music takes me over to this game setup for a game called Just Shapes and Beats, which everyone was surrounding in line to play. It was a 4-player rhythm bullet hell game. It had the Mortal Kombat theme in there, it had Danimal Cannon stuff there, and a bunch of other music from acts that would be huge in our community, like Chipsoul, for example. And fast forward a few years later, the game's on the Nintendo Switch, it's on Steam, it's on PlayStation 4, it's on Stadia, if you guys know what that is. But like it was a game that was picking up steam at shows like Magfest and their indie game alley, and now it's like a major console release, which is to me mind blowing. So if you want to like see the future of video games, they have an independent game showcase where you can see where things are starting out before they start to blow up. And there's a lot of cool games that get showcased in there. Like I think Kung Fu Kickball was another one that I loved in there. I don't know if that's gotten a major release yet, but that was one I've always enjoyed playing with people. Just a lot of fun short games that are easy to understand and to get into and have that addictive gameplay that if you're an old school gamer like me, you remember that from your days of childhood.
Yeah, that was I've seen some good stuff there too. I believe they call it the MIVS section, Magfest Indie Video Game Showcase. Really cool
Yeah.
stuff. Really cool stuff. Man, yeah, so I'm gonna start asking some really tough ones, but
Okay.
which out of all the Magfests that you've been to, which would you say was the best Magfest?
The best Magfest. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Let's see. There's been some. I've seen some legendary stuff. There was one year actually where they got Manami Matsume as a guest, and they brought out the Inti Create sound team. And each night they had the Inti Create sound team do a special concert in the main ballroom. So like one night was dedicated to Mega Man, another night was dedicated to Gunvolt, which is a game that they developed for the 3DS and now on the Switch. Then another night was dedicated to, I believe, Mighty Number Nine, which is kind of hilarious in hindsight. And also that year they got Keiji Inafune, who was a huge producer on the Mega Man franchise at Capcom for a while, and then he spearheaded Mighty Number Nine. This is like months before Mighty Number Nine came out, mind you. So we didn't know how the game was going to turn out. Like we were hoping for that. Oh yeah, this is going to be the spiritual successor of Mega Man. Capcom's going to be shown what's up by this new ragtag group of game developers. They're like, you know what, Capcom's not going to give the fans what they want, but we will. But then Mighty Number Nine turned out to be what it was, which was a huge disappointment for a lot of people. But the concerts they had that night were amazing because you had Godspeed as part of the NT Create sound team performing. He's great on guitar. You had Ippo Yamada, who's an amazing composer at NT Creates, like Mega Man Zero, Master Blaster Zero, Mega Man 9, Mega Man 10. He's the guy who made the Splash Woman theme, and he's DJing their concerts, which is amazing. And if it wasn't for Splash Woman, where would any of us be right now? You know what I mean? So that was cool. And they actually had Manami Matsume, who was the composer of the original Mega Man 1 game, get on stage and play with them. They did a bunch of bangers that night, and that was for the Mega Man concert. So that was an incredible Magfest. So probably my favorite one, but every year brings out something special. If I was to pick one, I believe that was my third year of going. So 2016 is my guesstimate. Someone can go to the Magfest wiki and confirm that. They have listings of who the major acts of each show were each year. But that one, I think, was probably my favorite one.
Yeah. And it definitely needs to be said. It's really cool when Magfest brings out composers and big names in the video game industry. I mean, last year, 2 years ago, when Bit Brigade they had
Takashi Tateishi.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, from Mega Man of Mega Man fame.
Oh yeah.
And he came out, and then they did Mega Man 2 in its entirety. That was incredible. I was there, and it was such a great night. And so, I'm gonna give you a follow up on that question. So, who would you say is your favorite composer that they brought to Magfest, like a video game composer?
Oh man. That's a tough question. I got to meet Takashi Tateishi. He actually signed my girlfriend's copy of Mega Man 2. She wasn't able to make it last year. He signed her copy of the game, and she didn't know about this. I actually snuffed the game out of the house and packed it, and when I got home, stuck it back to where it was. I wanted to see how long it would be before she discovered that, hey, her copy of Mega Man 2 had been signed. And then on months had passed, and she never noticed. So then it was her birthday. I'm like, surprise! And I blew her away, and Takashi Tateishi, I actually friended him on Facebook, and he actually accepted it. So I was pretty blown away by that. So that's pretty cool. So that was a good one to get, and obviously Minami Matsume. And I think it was like the first or second year I went. They brought out the composer of Katamari Damacy. I cannot remember his name right now, but they had him DJ the rave because he not only did like stuff for Katamari, but he also did a bunch of other Namco stuff as well. So they had him kick off the DJ rave. So that was incredibly cool because you get to play a bunch of Namco stuff and a bunch of his original music as well, and people were all about it. So I thought that was pretty dope.
Was it Yu Miyake?
Yeah, yeah, good call. Yes, yeah, Yu Miyake was a guest at Magfest many years ago. So you're the first or second one I went to.
Yeah, I think I was there. That was. Are you talking about the DJ battle where Cutman
Hmm.
and Grimecraft were playing together at the same time?
Yeah, Cutman used to run the video game DJ battle under the Game Shops label, and things have changed over the years. But that was a pretty hype part of the whole thing. So I think, yeah, Yu Miyake opened up, and then they went to Cutman and the whole rest of the crew.
Oh man, I gotta say, I really liked that night because one of the many reasons I went to Magfest was because of the Magfest 12 DJ battle. People were sharing it in a somebody shared it in a community group that I used to be a part of, and I was just like, man, this is so like every single one of those sets was a 10 out of 10 DJ set,
Yeah,
and it was all video game music, which I love. So it was getting me into that was then getting me into like EDM and electronic music and other genres that I had not listened to before. And I listened to so many of them so many times. I'm like, I have to go to Magfest. If this is what they have at Magfest, I have to go to Magfest. Now, the thing is, I was always kind of sad because I'm like, man, I wish I was at that Magfest. Like that night is gone. I will never be able to go to that. But then I went to the DJ battle that year. And yeah, the Grimecraft slash DJ Cutman session was so mind-blowingly good. Benjamin Briggs came out for a second. They had DJ Cutman's sister came out and she played a cello like along to the song. That was really cool. That was like such a great set. And to an extent, I kind of feel like, all right, I feel a little bit less bad about not being at Magfest 12 as a result.
yeah. I wish I went to I wish I knew about Magfest sooner or what it was. I think I missed the year. The year before I went, they had Yuzo Koshiro as a guest, and he DJ'd at their rave that year. And for those who don't know, he's the guy that did the soundtrack for Streets of Rage, Shinobi 3, ActRaiser, and many more classic games.
Yeah, you look back on some of the moments and it's like, oh man, I was actually in preparation for the Magfest telethon that they're doing, which by the way, guys, you should definitely check out. This is gonna be long after, but hopefully you were
Yeah.
there. Basically, I started looking through like old pictures and I found a picture. It turns out I was at the Super Best Friends panel, and I was like, wait, I don't remember going to that panel, but I was there. I was actually there. So like you really get to experience a bunch of cool stuff if you just kind of explore Magfest, you know. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, this past year, I wandered into like the jam areas, like they had the jam clinic and all that stuff. And they actually had a bunch of instruments set up in a room that you could play. Put on the headphones. They had drum kits, keyboard kits, even controllers for DJs and sample machines and all that stuff that you can just mess around with. And they had some people there that could show you how things worked if they weren't busy. And I don't know, I just spent a good hour in there. Just I'm not musically inclined. I'm more of a presenter slash promoter of music, but like it was just fun in there. Just hit the drums and other instruments and like try to recreate in my head, like the video game themes everyone knows, like like Woodman from Mega Man 2 or the Mario Brothers overworld theme, like stuff everyone knows that is easy to recite. And be like, let me just smash the drums and see what happens. And it was cool. They had all kinds of stuff like that all weekend. Like what's great about Magfest, you can do that convention 10 completely different ways each year. Like there's just multiple paths that you could take that weekend, and it's still an amazing time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I love the jam space too, by the way. And what's cool about the jam space is bands that a lot of people would like to see on the main stage, but they unfortunately can't get on there. They have a place to go do performances. At the jam space, there was a album release party at this year's Magfest, and it's really cool. So okay, moving right along again from one difficult question to the next. I'm glad that, by the way, I'm glad that we have you on because you're so musically inclined. It's like you really are a great person to talk to about Magfest because you just know all this stuff about composers and music, and we can talk about the jam space and whatnot. So I thank you for being here. But what is your favorite Magfest memory?
Man, actually, my favorite Magfest memory might be from this year's Magfest.
Sweet.
They had Mariachi Entertainment System making their Magfest debut this year, and the idea of a video game band doing mariachi music, or actually rather a mariachi group doing video game music, is phenomenal in and of itself. And because they've been longtime professional mariachi players, they kill it, right? So they did a show this year, but during their set, because this year had the Donkey Kong Country theme, David Wise was a guest. He's the composer of Donkey Kong Country. They said, "Hey, let's do Gangplank Galleon," and have David Wise come out on stage and play with them, right? But because they're a mariachi band and part of their gimmick with their YouTube videos, like before they all play, they all do shots of tequila. So they all got out their shots and they gave one to David Wise as well. And they gave him the little mariachi. Oh man, I wish I knew more about mariachi culture, but there's a thing that they had him wear around his neck to play with them, so he could be an honorary mariachi.
Oh,
And they all
man.
took shots of tequila together right before they did Gangplank Galleon. He was on the saxophone, and it was probably one of the most epic things I had seen live at Magfest. It's definitely the Magfest moment of this year, but it's definitely one of my favorite things because the idea of like the actual video game composers teaming up with these video game bands who've been inspired by their music and just coming together to play those songs that we grew up on is probably one of the most magical things that Magfest does every year. And there's tons of great Magfest moments, but that one is definitely high on my list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I couldn't make it to that concert, but I watched the video of it later on.
Oh yeah.
They killed it. I think they also contributed to the Guacamelee soundtrack too, or Guacamelee 2 soundtrack.
Yeah. I had David Ortiz, the founder of Mariachi Band or Mariachi Entertainment System, on my podcast, Nerd Music Meltdown. You guys can check that out in the archives. This is a great interview, but he brought that up because, well, now it's like all of a sudden they're playing video game music as a band for these many of years. Now it's like now they got to compose their own game soundtrack and make original mariachi music for a video game, which is wild because like that's a new thing. But that's one of the things I'm loving about this evolution of these people that were inspired by video game music enough to start their own bands where they play video game music, and now they're actually making original music for video games as composers themselves, whether it be Mariachi Entertainment System, Danimal Cannon, I believe Cutman's done some stuff, and just so many more guys. Chipsoul, obviously Family Jewels. All these folks have been doing music for video games now, and it's just wild to see that evolution, see everything come full circle.
Yeah, yeah. When I saw DJ Cutman at Magfest 20, he as he was about to play the song that they put into Sonic Mania, which he has I forget what relation he has to it.
Oh man, I got this. I know the answer to that one. So Kevin Valeka, who I've known for about almost 8 years, he was actually at one of the very first events that I put on because him and Ben Briggs were really tight, and I think they still are. It's hard to figure out who's still friends with each other after all these years in our community, you know. But like Kevin was doing a lot of solo stuff, and he had been affiliated with Game Chops for years. Then he partnered up with a guy named Sushi Killer, and they stirred up their own thing called Hyper Potions. And they've been doing all kinds of cool original music and video game remixes. And I guess the people who were making Sonic Mania thought highly enough of them to be like, hey, why don't you guys make the theme song for this game?
Yeah.
And it ended up being friends. And then Game Chops was the publisher for that song. So they had like managing rights to that. So obviously Game Chops gets the credit for that. But then the movie came out this year before everything went to hell. The Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out in February on Valentine's Day. And I didn't know going in what was going to happen. I've known Kevin for years. I'm very happy for his success. But within like minutes, I'm hearing friends play as the opening theme for the Sonic the Hedgehog movie in this movie theater, and I'm like, holy crap! One of the many great people I've gotten to meet on my journey in the video game music community in Magfest and Ongaku Overdrive has music in a major Hollywood movie that's going to be #1 for not only 1 week but 2 weeks. I think longer than that. And it's setting the tone for the whole movie that, hey, this could be a really good adaptation of the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. And I'm like tearing up in the movie theater because I had no idea this was going to happen. But just hearing that, I was just blown away by where people in our community, they've come so far along and have been able to enjoy such great success, and rightfully so.
Yeah, and thank you for clarifying on that. That's exactly what he brought up. He said it in the on stage that he always wanted to. It was something about how like he always wanted to have a song in like a major release, and yeah, and then now that song was in Sonic Mania, and Sonic Mania is one of my favorite games from recent memory. So it was really cool. That's really it really is nice to see like where, like you said, where people from the music game community, like how far they could take this.
From what I understand, that whole thing took about a year to put together. Like I messaged Cutman right after the movie because I stayed during the credits. So I'm like, you know what? I want to see my buddy's name in the credits. So I see that, and I'm like, also, and it not only lists Kevin Vleco and Sushi Killer by his real name, but like this listing Cutman. I mean, this listing Game Chops. So I'm like, what the hell? Game Chops is credited in this movie as well. So like after we got out, I texted Cutman. I'm like, yo, I just saw the Sonic movie. What the hell?
Oh man.
He told me what happened. I'm like, that's great. So yeah, that was like a year's worth of work to get that song into the movie.
Super proud of them. But again, I mean, and all of these guys, they got they got an early start too at Magfest, thanks to Magfest. You know, like Cutman has been playing at Magfest for a really long time, and many of them have. So it really shows you the power of Magfest and how important what Magfest does is. So I'm gonna be completely honest. We definitely got sidetracked. I think we got sidetracked off of the question, but I was asking you what your favorite Magfest memory was. You said that your favorite Magfest memory was the Mariachi Entertainment System concert.
With David,
Yeah, so it's kind of like that's pretty cool because that's a recent memory. Usually when I ask this question, people will bring up the first time that they went to Magfest. That's actually my favorite Magfest memory. You know, I feel like that's a very common thing, but it's very rare when somebody had brought up like a recent, like a 2020 memory. Like that really shows you how good the Mariachi Entertainment System show was.
yeah, definitely. And I think for me, my first Magfest, I ended up with the flu a week after for a week after the show. So it's like it was only gonna get better from there, right? And it has. I feel like every year Magfest has always figured out a way to top themselves.
Yeah, it just gets better every year. And better and bigger. What would you say is your favorite Magfest theme?
Favorite Magfest theme. I actually thought when they brought out Super Metroid as the theme, I thought it was cool for multiple reasons. That was the first year they broke out the hotel map to look like the Super Metroid map. That type of design. Some people were confused by it, but I was able to understand it very well. They had all the Metroid artwork, the badges, had the Metroid lanyard going on. But then also, one of the cool things about the poster art was instead of the Metroid hanging out in like that capsule, like the cover of Super Metroid, or rather the title screen of Super Metroid in that laboratory, they had like a guitar, like a stylized guitar to have like that Metroid color scheme that emphasized that hey, this is a music show. But in the actual main event's ballroom, they had a replica of that capsule with the guitar that they had in their promo poster and other promo art. So I love that Super Metroid theme that they had very much.
Yeah, that was a really good one. Is there any theme that you would like to see them do in the future that they
Man,
haven't done?
I thought the Doom idea was incredibly cool. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. Because I noticed with their theme, they also try to get musicians, like their actual composer guests, to come out. So, like this past year, they had Donkey Kong Country, so David Weiss was able to come out. So that was incredibly cool. I mean, this year would have been the 35th anniversary of Mario. Next year's actually the 30th anniversary, like 2021 is the 30th anniversary of Sonic the Hedgehog. So if they could figure out a way to get something related to that, I think a Sonic theme one would be super cool. It seems like they go for like not like the top tier A list, like kind of like the tier below, so that way it's not super mainstream. So they've done stuff like Kirby, Donkey Kong. So I guess let me think in my head what would be cool that they could do because part of it's also the merchandising is a huge part of what they do. So they have to have cool stuff related to it. I mean, Sonic obviously I think needs to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Sonic was actually for
yeah,
Mag West, if you remember. That was kind of the theme for the first one.
yeah, gotta go west was the slogan, and then they had Animal Crossing this past year, which that was incredible artwork and theming as well.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if they had done Animal Crossing for MagWest, I would say do that because that game is so hot and people are into it. Ah, jeez. I mean, Tetris would be kind of neat in some ways, but maybe the merchandise would be incredibly plain. I'm
That's
I'm trying to think of what would symbolize a pandemic being over. Like, what video games exist where there's like this pandemic that runs roughshod, and then like you cure it. I guess Dr. Mario would have been a very, very fun theme if they were able to get the chance to do it again.
but speaking of Mario though, you brought up a really good point. Like they can't do Mario. So this year's theme, for those that don't know, was supposed to be next year's theme, 2021's theme was supposed to be Doom.
Yeah,
Like you said, 2020's theme was Donkey Kong. So they can't really, they kind of got sidetracked and then blindsided by the pandemic, so they weren't really able to fit Mario for the 35th anniversary. But as you said, Sonic's anniversary is coming up. What if they did Mario versus Sonic or something like that? So they did Mario and Sonic for the whole thing. That would be two birds with one stone, and that'd be a great theme.
I think that's a great idea. Actually, one just popped in my head would be more relevant to modern times, but Persona is incredibly popular. A
Oh
lot of
man.
Persona fans go to Magfest. So, and plus, it's very stylish. You do all kinds of great merchandising,
Oh yeah.
theming. The badges will look incredibly cool. I think Persona would be one to maybe try out for a future Magfest theme.
Yeah, we have a group of people that, like, we have a small little community that grew out of Magfest, of just some Persona cosplayers, because Magfest has tons of cosplay meetups, and we would always kind of goof around after the photo shoots that we did. So we ended up doing this tradition where every year we meet up and we do a Persona themed dance party, like just in the hallways and stuff, and it's been pretty cool. Yeah, a Persona I just want to say a Persona themed Magfest would definitely mean a lot to us if they did that. I think it'll come up eventually. 5 was huge, like you said. You can't go to a convention and not see Persona 5 cosplay, but yeah, I think a Persona theme is going to be inevitable.
And the music's iconic. A lot of bands are already starting to
Yes.
play, like Insane the Rain Music, Family Jewels has done a ton of stuff with Persona. I think Cutman's done some lo-fi remixes of it as well. But if you go to Spotify and just type in Persona remixes or just Persona songs, you'll find that there's already a lot of people doing their arrangements of those already.
I want to change gears here a second, and since we got you, you're obviously well known. Sorry, you know a lot in the music aspect of what makes Magfest great, but you're also in events, and that's important too. So in terms of like the planning of Magfest and the way Magfest is structured and all the different departments that you have at Magfest that people could just go enjoy, again, like arcades and chip space and all that stuff, is there anything that they do that you'd like to see them do a little bit different in terms of planning for the next Magfest?
That's a great question. I think one of the things they do a lot of, they have multiple stages. They got the main ballroom stage, they got chip space, they got jam space, they got Mega Manathon, and I believe they got one more stage as well. And there's just so much going on musically that it's incredibly hard to keep up. So I think maybe figuring out a way to, I mean, like I know performers want to have as many opportunities as possible to play, but maybe reining it in so it's a little bit more organized and scheduled, because like there's a lot of running back and forth. And then even then there's like certain acts where it's like you'll have a hot video game band going on in the Mega Marathon at the same time a hot video game band is going on in the main stage ballroom. Or maybe you'll have Megaran on one stage and maybe a lesser known nerdcore act on a different stage. It's like, all right, which one are you going to go to, Megaran or the other nerdcore stage where maybe the lesser known act? And that usually 9 times out of 10 people are going to go with Megaran, so that kind of hurts the smaller act that's come all the way out to Magfest. Maybe it's their first time there, and it's like, yo, I want people to see me perform, but like I'm going against the GOAT, the biggest guy in the whole genre, So I think maybe being a little bit more organized of when acts are scheduled would be cool. I think the other thing, speaking of nerdcore, I think Magfest could really feature that more on the main stage. Usually, before they would only get like one act a year, usually Megaran, maybe Samus, and that would be it. And they've expanded, like maybe have 3 or 4 different acts for a weekend. I think there's kind of a little bit of room to feature the hip hop aspect more. Maybe have 6 acts, have 2 different nerdcore acts each day of the concert schedule, and I think that would really bump up the nerdcore genre, make that community feel like they're more valued at Magfest. So that's one thing I would definitely like to see more than anything else is maybe a stronger representation of nerdcore, because I feel like everything else that Magfest is doing is done very well.
Is there anything that you kind of noticed that's like new for Magfest that maybe they did a change or something that just started to kind of cropping up around Magfest that you really like and you want to see more of?
Well, they just changed the Mega Manathon to Magfast, and Mega Manathon, for those that don't know, is a 3.5 day long charity stream, usually for like Child's Play or some other type of charity. It would raise several $1,000s for the weekend, and of course, it would be wedged in between Zeldathon and Games Done Quick or Awesome Games Done Quick, which make way more money. So I think maybe promoting that aspect of Magfest harder would be better. But I think by changing it from Mega Manathon to Magfest and making it a little bit more generic, I think it caused the charity aspect of Magfest to lose its identity. I don't know how successful it was in terms of how much money it made this year, but it felt like going there live, the attendance was lower this year than in previous years. I think having that focus of being, and maybe it doesn't have to be Mega Man, maybe it could be some other type of game series, but I think maybe what would make Magfest stand out is like, okay, this year we're focusing on this particular game franchise. So maybe one year it's like a bunch of Doom games. Like let's say the theme is Doom this year, right? So it's all weekend of different kinds of Dooms and Doom variants like Quake, Wolfenstein, etc., etc. And watching people speed run through that, because those games are incredibly crazy, and there's different types of stipulations like maybe blindfold runs or no death runs. There's all kinds of ways you can customize it. I feel like just be like, hey, we're not going to be restricted on what kind of games we have at the speedrun marathon this year. Made it look like a junior version of what Games Done Quick is, which is right after Magfest. So it's like, I think they need to rework that charity stream aspect a little bit more. So I think they can get the numbers up back to where it was, and maybe even go beyond that. Maybe doing a different theme each year. Maybe one year is Mega Man, another year is Sonic, and those game franchises are big enough that they can pull off a weekend's worth of content doing that.
So while I agree that they definitely should promote it harder, and try to and focus on it. I think it's a really cool aspect of speedrunning at Magfest. I honestly think that not having restrictions, at least for now, is better for it, because the thing is, if you restrict it to one game, there's a lot of people that just aren't going to be interested in those games. And also, more importantly, you're going to have people that can speedrun specifically that game for Magfest. I mean, I'm sure that you could still find people that will be able to speedrun if you pick a specific theme, for sure, without a doubt. And I'm sure some people will be able to learn it. But the thing is, by having it open, you're actually able to get, I think, a lot more speedrunners to come out and show off their talents. And you get to see, I think with speedrunning, the variety is the spice of life, because you're not just going to see one type of thing. It does feel like a mini Games Done Quick, and it doesn't help that GDQ comes right after that. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I think the other issue is we noticed this past year that the speedrunners weren't that great. So what we came to as a conclusion is maybe the runners themselves, because Games Done Quick's happening the week after, that maybe the best speedrunners for the job to do something like Magfest are focusing on Games Done Quick. Whereas maybe with Mega Manathon being what it was, maybe they're getting the best Mega Man speedrunners over to Magfest, because a whole weekend dedicate that. Because I feel like the speedruns for Mega Manathon went a lot smoother and better than the Magfest ones.
I see. It's entirely possible. I just think that if you're unrestricting it, you're cultivating a community of speedrunners at Magfest. And eventually, when that builds up, if you give it time to flourish and have all these speedrunners come out, then I think they can as a community decide, like, okay, next year at Magfest, we have to pick a theme. What theme do we want to play? Because then the group as a community will choose, like they'll just vote on it or something like that. And but having it unrestricted allows more people to come through to do speedruns, I think. I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I've never seen, I was not at Mega Manathon, so I don't know that as like a point of comparison, but Yeah, I definitely would like to see more focus on the speedrunning. It was one of the highlights of my Magfest 2020 for sure. And with that, we are gonna move on to the next question, which is, so how do you feel about, right? So again, once again on the planner side, how would you feel if Magfest has always been on the it's just one pass, it's a 4-day pass and that's it? How would you feel if they changed it from like it's just 4 days and that's what you get, to like they have tiers, so you could get a Sunday pass, you could get a Friday pass, all that kind of stuff?
That's incredibly chaotic, and especially being on that secluded island with limited hotel space. Imagine making all those travel plans, and now you can just go for a day. You can only go there for a day. I know PAX does. I know New York Comic Con does it, but those conventions are way too bloated, in my opinion. I feel like MagFest is just the right size. I think they should really just cap it at 20,000 attendees. I think they got a little bit north of that, but I think if they just capped it at like 20,000 max, I think that would help out with the hotel situation. So I don't know. I'm fine with buying a straight up weekend pass. I feel like MagFest is a high end experience. Like you go into like the Chris Roos Steakhouse of like video game conventions, not McDonald's. You know, it's not your local con where you only need to go on a Saturday because the schedule's not as packed and there's not much to do at said local con. But MagFest is like a weekend's worth of stuff. I think the price point is right. I think it's like $80 to $85 for a weekend pass. I think that's incredibly fair. That's like about $20 a day, and you're getting your money's worth out of every single day, even Sunday. And I don't think that needs to change. I think that's something that doesn't need to be fixed. It's not broke. It doesn't need to be fixed. I think the other conventions really do that day pass thing because, well, they just want to make extra money. They want to get as many people in. They want to tout how many unique attendees they have. Because some conventions will be like, person bought a weekend pass, they count as 3 people instead of 1. Whereas the more honest conventions be like, well, they bought a weekend pass, they're 1 person, but you're selling a bunch of individual day passes, and you're like, well, we had all these extra people show up so they can do things like, you know, charge more for vendors, charge more for artist alley tables, and come up with other means to make extra money beyond the individual sale of those passes.
Thank you. That's a very thorough answer. All right, so we're gonna wind this down now, and I got 2 more questions for you. So, how? Let's say you're going to Magfest. How do you plan on going to Magfest? Like, how do you plan out your different days and like your travel and like all that kind of stuff? Like, what would be the perfect Magfest plan in your book?
All right, well, this year was gonna be great because since they put up the dates, my buddy Ryan, who runs Metroid Database, had already secured a suite at one of the nearby hotels, like a block away from the actual main hotel. And it's a really nice suite. Like it's really good size. You can fit about 8 people in there. The facilities for like the gym and the pool are fantastic. Right down the street from the grocery store. So that was our plan, was to stay in this suite. So my going from there, I'm like, well, I'm gonna fly in Wednesday around lunch, do the DC thing, come back at nighttime, pick up my pass, walk around Magfest Wednesday night as people are filing in, and just say hello to all my friends. Then enjoy Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Then Sunday's like, you know, pack up, stow my luggage away in the hotel storage area, and then go to Magfest for several hours. Go to Rock Island, which is the merch area for the artist in the dealer room, and say goodbye to all my music friends. Maybe do a few rounds of some games in the arcade or the independent game area. Then make my way back to Ronald Reagan Airport and head home. And that's usually my ideal trip for Magfest. And of course, I'll usually book my flights October, November, try to get the cheapest deal possible. Something that's good for luggage, whether it be Southwest or maybe another airline that's cheap when it comes to one bag being checked in. And I think it's important for anyone going to Magfest to just get a hotel for the day before the event, which usually is Wednesday, because then you're already checked in Wednesday night. You can enjoy the whole weekend from the beginning of Thursday all the way to the end of Sunday.
I agree. I definitely agree. And some people also do a day after too, so you don't have to like rush
Yeah.
to get out. So if they just take the day off for work if they can. Actually, I got a follow up question. I got a follow up question on that one. so planning wise, like for you personally, is there anything that you do planning for Magfest different than you would for a different convention or festival or event?
Yeah, Magfest is the only convention where I fly in a day earlier because one, DC is an amazing city to check out. There's a lot to do in Washington D.C. A lot of free museums, a lot of landmarks. Lincoln Memorial, Washington Memorial, walk in front of the White House. I was actually hoping to look. I was actually looking forward to that next year, depending on how things go with the election. but but I do that Wednesday night. I, of course, shop at the grocery store because eating at Magfest is incredibly expensive. Most of the restaurants cost a lot, but even then, because there's so many people in that area, you can be in the in a restaurant for like up to 2 hours. And you can miss out on a lot in 2 hours. So what I've learned is, there's a grocery store called the Potomac Gourmet Market right down the street from Magfest, just a couple blocks down. It's an amazing grocery store. They have all kinds of stuff for sandwiches, lunch meat, fruit, vegetables, beer, wine, snacks. So I usually shop there Wednesday night to get like maybe 4 days worth of food. So I'm making sandwiches and ham and bananas and protein bars and whatnot every day, right? So that way I'm saving a lot of money on food, but I'm also saving out on a lot of time because if I need to go to my hotel, and I usually try to set it up where I'll be at Magfest for like maybe 3 or 4 hours straight, go back to my room, rest for an hour, recharge my phone, eat, just sit and lie down for about an hour just so I can rest my body. Because I'm getting older, so the whole like 4 days straight of partying doesn't really work for me. I need to take breaks at least a few times a day. So I'm saving a lot of time just eating in my hotel room instead of at a restaurant.
I agree. It's definitely very expensive. I try to bring stuff too, food wise. But I do that for like every convention, just to have like protein shakes and stuff.
Hmm.
Okay, so final question, and this is one of the ender questions I usually ask. But if you had to compare Magfest to a song or a musical album or a musical group or a movie, book, game, any form of media, which would you pick, and why is it a perfect comparison for the festival?
Wow, that is tremendous. Man, I'm thinking right off the top of my head. I don't know if you remember the second Matrix movie, um, where they're setting up that nightclub scene where like, hey, they're having a rave outside of the whole Matrix. Like everyone who's unplugged, they're doing like a rave party, right? To celebrate that Neo took down, I guess, the agents, whatever happened at the end of the first movie. And like everyone's wearing crazy gear, everyone's cosplaying visually, everything looks wild, the music's wild, and it's just an insane party vibe. And I feel like the closest thing I could think of is maybe in terms of fiction is that rave scene from the second Matrix movie. I think it was like Matrix Reloaded.
Awesome. Yeah. And yeah, and thank you. And usually that question is it's so tough to ask. I would like to give people time to prepare. Prepare for that one, but like that's a great off the top of your head answer. Didn't hesitate on it.
Yeah,
Um,
Magfest is a very unique experience. There's nothing like it. I've been to all sorts of conventions and festivals throughout the country. Traveling's become a very favorite yet expensive hobby of mine. Haven't gotten to engage in it this year, obviously, but it's something I look forward to doing. But like, I've never been to an event that is quite like a Magfest. The atmosphere, the people, the entertainment, the whole vibe is a one of a kind thing. It's very inspiring. It definitely makes me feel good about how the year is going to be, and it's just an incredibly positive event.
awesome. Is there do you want to put in your social medias right here? Just let us know where people can find you.
Yeah, I run Ongaku Overdrive. We actually have online concerts on our Twitch channel featuring some of the acts that you would see at Magfest, or if you're listening because you're in Orlando and I do Ongaku Overdrive, and those kind of acts you would see there as well. So we got a show coming up September 26th on twitch.tv/Ongaku Overdrive featuring Lame Genie, Wreck the System, Ro Panuganti, and Rhythm Bastard. And then we're planning our next show, Virtual Ongaku 5, for October 24th, which is also on a Saturday. So those are free to watch on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Ongaku Overdrive. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all at Ongaku Overdrive. And my personal Twitter is at Fist of the MFK. I might change it. I don't know. I've been thinking about rebranding myself, but I am on social media and I'm easily found.
Awesome. Well, once again, Kent, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much, Mash, for having me. You take care. All right.
Yep. Yep. You take care and goodbye, everyone. Take it easy.